This gentleman here.
I was born Muslim, and the logic you brought at the beginning when you wanted to refute the philosophy of Richard Dawkins, he said he hasn't understood philosophy. And you brought an example, a philosophical example, and said that you know what God is, you know what exists is, therefore God exists. Now, this logic is very analogous to the logic of a mullah, a Muslim mullah, who was telling us that the God, they say Allah, which means the God. In your term, the God with capital G, has brought the words in this book, which we call Quran. And if you say, how do you know that? It says, Quran is all true, and that says that these are the word of God.
Right, it's a secular argument.
It is the word of God. Simple argument.
Sure.
It's similar to that argument. You're saying that
Yeah, but I'm not
we know
supporting that
what God is.
Sorry.
What God is, you know what exist is, therefore God exists. That argument is not really an argument of scientific type that we can say because of this and that evidence we come to the conclusion that this is true.
You misunderstood my talk. I don't believe the ontological argument. I think it's a fallacious argument. And I didn't give the ontological argument in full. You have to, some work has to be done by the person who holds it to establish that, in their view, somehow the word God, the meaning of the word God and the meaning of the word exists, are such that you cannot logically deny that God exists. I mean, some work needs to be done, but I think even if you try to do that work, you fail. It's a fallacious kind of argument. I don't support it. I didn't, in my talk, I gave it as an example of an argument which has been convincing to a number of very strong philosophical minds, and as I say, even the young Bertrand Russell, and which, therefore, I think is worthy of serious attention. Not true, I think it's actually fallacious, but it's worthy of some serious intellectual attention.
What did the old Bertrand Russell What did the old
The old Bertrand Russell thought the young Bertrand Russell had been mistaken. And so do I, as I say. I think the young Bertrand Russell was wrong to be convinced by the ontological argument. But the point is, this is a serious argument that has convinced serious philosophical minds in the past that it can't be dismissed by caricaturing it as a sort of playground piece of thinking. It needs to be thought about and seriously argued in a good and serious philosophical way. And it's that kind of hard thinking that Dawkins doesn't do. The very interesting thing about his book is he doesn't know anything about theology. He hasn't read anything. Very, very evident from his book. But he doesn't know any atheist thinking either. That he doesn't actually quote any of the serious and hard-minded atheists. I mean, people actually come to me all the time.
I have a question on to Dawkins again because I would want to come back.
I mean, that was what that part of the talk was meant to demonstrate. That the book is not serious. It doesn't actually deal in any kind of serious intellectual way with what are really serious intellectual arguments.
Can I just add an interjection? That the purpose of the God delusion was like a foghorn out on the river there. There isn't a lot of light in this area. Dawkins wants to raise the consciousness of people about these issues, so we all get down and debate them as we're doing now.
He doesn't actually raise, but
if you blast a foghorn, you don't produce pages and pages and thousands of years of complex philosophical argument. That's all in the literature. You blow a foghorn and you say, here are the issues, let's talk about it.
But he doesn't even mention. He doesn't even mention what's in the arguments.
It's 9 o'clock. I think we're going to keep it out just to 2 or 3 more, and if we keep the questions short and the answers short, so we're not here till midnight. Although that might be very interesting. Question now from Peter. There's somebody so keep that. The gentleman there.
Right. I have a feeling that you may that my philosophical question might be easily not answered by you. But anyway, You say God is the place where the explanatory buck stops, and I think
Right.
I've heard this before, and it's one of the more I don't want to be insulting, but one of the more respectable answers that religious people have given. But why does the buck have to stop at all? Aren't you making an assumption that there is some ultimate answer, and that's not something?
Right. That's a really good question. And it's not at all an easy philosophical question to answer. But I think that it can be answered. And let me give you a couple of metaphors which back up the intuition I have that this chain of answers must somehow come to an end. Suppose I have a chair suspended above my foot. But don't worry, it's not going to fall on my foot because it's held up by another chair that's above it and connected by a bit of rope. But don't worry, it's connected to another chair that's above that, by another bit of rope, and another one above that, and so on, infinitely. I'm jolly well going to move my foot. The whole tower isn't supported. There isn't any, and of course, the metaphor is meant to, or the analogy is meant to make us think that unless explanations stop somewhere, nothing is explained. That the whole chain of explanations doesn't give us any sense of why things really ultimately happen, unless it comes to a terminus somewhere. Let me give you another analogy for the same thing.
I'd open the furniture shop.
Sorry?
I'd open the furniture shop.
Well, there you are. Let me give you another analogy for the same thing. Suppose I attach a chain to the door handle there. The chain stretches out in that direction infinitely. It's tied to the door handle on this hand, and if you look at any link in the chain, the link is supported by the link before it and the link after it. Fine. But surely there's some sense that it's not supported by anything. Right? It's not attached on that end. That's the reason I think infinite explanatory series don't work. Because if any explanatory series is infinite, I think it explains nothing.